Welcome to talkSPORT End Zone. I'm Jay Lawrence, joined by talkSPORT's own Brian T. Smith and NFL analyst Phoebe Schechter, counting down the top 5 Super Bowl contenders. Well, as per Brian T. Smith, actually, over here. So we're looking at you if we don't agree with this list. But it's starting well at number 5.
The good news is it changes every week. Yeah. The NFL changes every week, and it's been a very unpredictable NFL season. But there have been a few teams that are starting to become the class of the league.
And number 5, the Houston Texans, Brian, a team that, coming into this season were considered Super Bowl contenders. Have they done anything to make you think otherwise?
They really haven't. I mean, they've had some injury issues, right? They're a little banged up at running back, a little banged up at wide receiver. They had one loss to Minnesota, who's the hottest team in the NFL. Coming into London, nobody can beat the Minnesota Vikings right now, but the Texans look like a really, really strong team. They still have to prove it. CJ Stroud still looks like by the end of the season he could be an MVP contender. I like their defense, like the offense, solid special teams, well coached. I haven't seen anything from the Houston Texans that scares me off of them. They're a top 5 team in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that one as well. I just think that CJ Stroud has done an incredible job just taking ownership of this team. You would not think that he is in his second year right now. They add in the ability with the run game. You bring on Stephon Diggs. I mean, there's just a lot of these great pieces coming together. Nico Collins has stepped up big for them a couple different times. And I think they're a team that if they can keep rolling, I think Vikings are always a challenge. They challenge the best of quarterbacks. I mean, that's why they're 4-0 at the moment. But yeah, they're really incredible, and I love DeMeco Ryans.
And it feels like they're in a division, like they're going to own that division,
Absolutely.
Right? Indianapolis doesn't scare me. Jacksonville definitely doesn't scare me at all. The Houston Texans are 3-1 going into Week 5. They're in the playoffs for me already, barring something absolutely insane. So you win your division, you're hosting a playoff game. They just feel like a contender right now.
And look, you're from Houston, aren't you, Brian? What would that mean to the city if there was a Super Bowl, won by the Texans, who are yet to win one?
Houston. So factually, and you're totally right.
Okay, all right. Go on.
The Houston Texans. No, it's even better, even worse if you're a Houston fan. The Houston Texans have not been to the AFC Championship, right? So their expansion franchise from 2002, they've never even been that close, and it had gotten so bad for a 3-year period. And you have Deshaun Watson, who goes bad with the Houston Texans. So how do you get out of that? Well, eventually you have the right general manager, Nick Caserio. You hire the right head coach, DeMeco Ryans, and you draft the right quarterback at number 2, not at number 1, but CJ Stroud. And so you put all that together, and that city believes in that team so much right now. It's a little bit, you don't want to get too excited if you're a Texans fan because you don't want to have your heart broken. But if they were to make the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl is in New Orleans this year, that is an absolute dream scenario for the Houston Texans and the city of Houston.
Well, look, we'll move on to number 4, and a team actually that's been very consistent in the regular season over the last few years. A multi-MVP quarterback as well, and Lamar Jackson. Number 4 is Baltimore Ravens, Brian.
Derrick Henry. I mean,
Derrick Henry. Okay, next, Phoebe.
To beast mode, right? I mean, Derrick Henry King Henry has been so strong, so impressive, so phenomenal with the stiff arms, with the runs. And this is what I love about Derrick Henry. He has the speed, right? You see these comps. Yeah. He's one of the fastest players in the NFL, to the point that Lamar Jackson can throw for 156 yards and they can still blow out the Buffalo Bills. Phoebe, I think we're starting to finally see this. These are the Ravens that we were maybe hoping to see when the season started.
Absolutely. And look, Derrick Henry's a guy that you can't let him get outside the box, right? You've got to stop that in the backfield ultimately. For me, that game against the Bills was a real prove-it game. And we saw earlier in the week, Harbaugh had said that, very kind of loose term, that his defense needed to be a bit stickier, essentially. And they literally lived that throughout the game. They came in with attitude. The way that Kyle Hamilton is playing, I mean, he's one of my favorite players to watch anyways, but he was disruptive the whole time. They didn't give any separation to those receivers. They put Josh Allen under pressure multiple times. I mean, they were so dominant. They came in there saying, look, this is who we are. And if they can maintain that, that's the question. Can they maintain that throughout into the postseason? These would absolutely be a Super Bowl contender right now.
Do you take any consideration into the fact that the Ravens haven't really done it in the postseason? Lamar Jackson hasn't really done it in the playoffs at all.
Yeah, and I think back to last year, right, when they played the Chiefs. The Chiefs are one of those anomalies where they find a way to force teams out of who they are. And ultimately, when you get to that point, yes, you are playing the other team. Let's not, mess around with that. But you have an identity. And for me, when they played the Chiefs, and even when they played the Chiefs earlier on this year, they did not run the ball. And that was a big part of their identity. Look at what they did to the Bills. But when you play the Chiefs, you change who you are. So for me, ultimately, it's about how they can just go back to their true selves when they're in those situations.
And that brings you back to Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry.
You have that balance right now. So Lamar Jackson can run around you, run all over you. He's one of the best downfield passers in the game when he's on. He has weapons. He has now a year in with his offensive coordinator. You have one of the NFL's best coaches. You add Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson. Through 4 weeks, I think we're starting to see a glimpse of this could be a real, and it's an all-season type team because you can win that way in January, in the snow, in the rain. There are only a few teams that could be a powerhouse and win kind of an old school way, and it feels like right now through 4 weeks, Baltimore could.
And I want to say something really, really stupid, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. Last year, when the Tennessee Titans were in London, I was there, like, the media days, they have, like, before then, the availability. So I was at one of those, and Derrick Henry was there. He's a massive man. He's massive. You look at him and it's just like, you should not be playing running back, but it's incredibly effective.
He could squat a car.
Yeah,
I mean, that is how strong.
I didn't say anything. I was too scared. We'll move on to number 3, and it's the Super Bowl champions, the reigning Super Bowl champions. Can they three-peat? Well, they're 4-0 at the moment, Brian, the Kansas City Chiefs.
This is the first time for our Super Bowl rankings that the Chiefs are not number 1, and that is just. I think we're all seeing it, right? They're winning, they're 4-0, but they do not look like the best team, and some of it's not their fault. I mean, how crazy that Patrick Mahomes is trying to make a tackle and stretches out and runs into the receiver he has to have, and now he's potentially out for the season. That is horrendous luck. I loved, after getting called out on this program last week, that Travis Kelce bounced back and looked like an NFL tight end again, but Kansas City. The 4-0 just doesn't feel like a very strong 4-0 to me. And without Patrick Mahomes, who are they right now?
Is it a case of they just need weapons right now?
They do just need weapons, but I mean, every game they've had this season has come down to it could have gone either way, whether you're talking about literally in game 1 where it was the toe of likely in the back of the end zone. I mean, the Falcons game was close. Every single one of their game has been close, and I think that's probably what we're feeling. None of it has been a convincing win. They let the Chargers in, early on. They've got to find a way to just come in there, dominate from the beginning, and maintain that.
I feel like that's been the Chiefs, though, like MO almost for the
last couple of years.
The last couple of years, it's just like you watch the Chiefs. And they could be down 10, they could be down 7. They'll win by 1.
Showtime
they'll win
Mahomes.
by 3.
You put the ball in Mahomes' hand.
But it's not fun, though, is it? It's not fun to watch them anymore.
I love Mahomes' athletic ability. I am in absolute awe of Patrick Mahomes. I love Andy Reid as a play caller. So Will and I had a fun time disagreeing on this a couple episodes ago. I cannot root against Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. He's too darn good.
Okay.
I have fun.
Okay. Well, I tell you, there's a team that I know that you will not be rooting against because you are having a lot of time watching them right now. Number 2 on the Super Bowl contenders, the Minnesota Vikings, Brian. And there's a reason why they're number 2.
Yeah, but I wanted to create a little controversy on this list because I think a lot of people, rightfully so, would say Minnesota is the number 1 team in the NFL right now. They have everyone in the world wants Sam Darnold to be their quarterback in 2024. They have a great defense. They've already overcome adversity. You have Justin Jefferson with some offseason, issues. Maybe there's a contract issue, whatever. Justin Jefferson has been what he should be for this team. This is coming into London, coming into Tottenham. This is the hottest team right now. My only issue with Minnesota is I have to continue to see it from Sam Darnold. Maybe that's a personal bias. Maybe that's something that I'm going to be wrong in the future. But if you're giving me Sam Darnold versus one of the elite quarterbacks, I'm taking the other quarterback on the field, and I will change this ranking after this week if Minnesota can win in London.
But I feel like, with Sam Darnold, from an objective point of view, we want him to succeed, right? We want him to succeed. But he was with the Carolina Panthers. He had a good start to the season, and that was derailed very quickly. Is there still a lot of skepticism about Sam Darnold, do you think?
I don't think there is anymore because he's come in and he's literally come in with so much confidence. And it's great to see. Kevin O'Connell has created this great atmosphere for him to be able to be successful, right? They had Kirk Cousins before. They were limited with what they could do with him just based off of mobility. And now you bring in Sam Darnold, who's just taken off. I mean, whether you're looking at going the 97-yard touchdown to Jefferson, he's not afraid to take these risks. Yeah. He's got the arm strength. I think the only thing that I would have put me over the edge with maybe putting Vikings first, which actually was negated last weekend, was their inability when they're up to stay up. The defense for me was actually the letdown in the second half of that game, where they were just giving so much space. They went to kind of basic cover two, and I don't think that's sustainable, right? They almost let Green Bay back in the game, and Green Bay might have won that if their kicker could have gotten those 2 field goals. It would have been a totally different conversation. So I think they're right where they are. Before the game the other day, I would have said they would have been at number 1.
Number 1, though. Number 1 is, I think I spoke about it, didn't I, on the rundown, which you can watch on talkSPORT End Zone. The Detroit Lions they're the fun team right now, aren't they? And at number 1, everybody wants to support the Detroit Lions for the whole personnel, for Jared Goff, for Dan Campbell, for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Number 1, Detroit Lions. Give it to us, Brian.
I feel like right now Detroit is America's team.
Dallas fuming right now.
Nobody thinks the Cowboys.
All of Texas livid.
Most of Texas did not like the Dallas Cowboys. I know that for a fact, and nobody thinks that the Cowboys is America's team. They're not good enough. I love Dan Campbell as a head coach. He is perfect for that organization, for that city. I don't think there's anyone in America rooting against the Detroit Lions unless your team is playing on that Sunday or that Monday Night Football. They have the weapons. And I do go off past experience from the playoffs last year. Detroit was close last year. They spent the whole season having to prove everybody. Like, when was Detroit going to fall off? They were the Minnesota Vikings of last year, right? They were going to collapse at some point. They never really did. Found it in the playoffs, has some really close games, could have been in the Super Bowl. So for them to be able to replicate this, to keep building off of it, and for Jared Goff to go 18 of 18, doesn't get the game ball, but goes 18 of 18. We talked about this on the rundown. This just looks like a team that is very well-rounded, but they know that they let it slip last year, and they have something to prove again this year.
Catching a touchdown as well.
And catching a touchdown, who doesn't love that, right? When you're able to have fun in such an incredible game. I think this was a big test for the Lions and the Seahawks, and the Lions came out with all guns blazing. It was incredible to see. I think that they've got all the right pieces of the puzzle coming into the season. They knew that the pressure was on them, and they're actually meeting that. I think this was a big game to kind of, at least for myself, to prove that they could be that Super Bowl contention team, and their run game is unstoppable, and that's ultimately what you need. Your foundations have to be built on the run game, and they can do that lights out.
And I come at it a lot of the time when you look at these teams, I think about the fan base. I mentioned it earlier on with Houston, but for Detroit, getting so close last year as well. The city of Detroit, this is massive for them if they were able to get to a Super Bowl at the very least.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine what that would be like? Yeah. Detroit in New Orleans. That would
be... The whole of Detroit will be heading up Bourbon Street,
Oh, 100%, yeah. But it means so much to them. Breaking that streak last year of not making it into the playoffs like that was an incredible step. Eminem is up there waving the flag for them. You've got this incredible hard-working community, this blue-collar community that really just lives and breathes the Lions, and so for them, this would be such a great gift if their team can make it that far.
What would the Detroit Lions have to do to not be at number 1 next week?
What do they have to?
Or you know what I'm saying?
That's like a very English phrasing to a U.S. question. If Detroit just keeps doing the same thing and winning convincingly and playing efficient football, they don't turn it over very much. They have an explosive offense, solid defense, well-coached team. They just keep doing that. Unless Minnesota comes to London and destroys Aaron Rodgers and Minnesota wins 40-0 at Tottenham, Detroit Lions will hold on to this ranking.
Okay, well, we'll find out next week, won't we? The top 5 Super Bowl contenders. Brian, Phoebe, thank you very much.